Welcome to It's All Been Done Radio Hour. This week, we bring you another Meet the Cast episode. This one is Keith Jackson, who starred as Cowboy Joe in last week's set of commercials. He's Admiral Jamieson on Universe Journey, and he's Commissioner Carl Darling on The Top Notch Tangler, as well as assorted other characters from time to time. Before you listen, please go to audibletrial.com/IABD Radio Hour to get a free audiobook of your choosing. They have over 180,000 titles to choose from, and it's an Amazon company, so you know it's a nice, reliable company that has good products. Also, if you'd like to go to our website, it's allbeendoneradiohour.com, there is a link to Amazon that if you could please bookmark it, we would very much appreciate it. That will, if you use that link to shop on Amazon, then we get a small commission on whatever you buy as a way to support our show. Also like to thank Mad Lab Theater, our host site, and Pack Rat Comics, our former host site. So we are going to do an interview. So this month's Meet the Cast is Keith Jackson. Say hello, Keith.
Hello.
So the Meet the Cast series, have you heard the first couple episodes?
Yes, I heard Nathan and Nick.
And Nick, yes. And you are actually number 4. We've recorded Dallas's. We haven't released it yet, which is good because he asks you a question, which we'll get to at the end of the podcast. And now you don't know what it is ahead of time. But that's good. So Keith plays Admiral Jamieson. Is a major character for you.
Yep.
How did you come up with the voice for Admiral Jamieson?
Oh God. Probably. I mean, the two major ones I do probably aren't really that much different from my own natural voice. I mean, there are a couple things I do to shift it a little bit, but I think in my head I had some of the like the typical annoyed administrative types. I think one of the first ones that popped in my head was like Superintendent Chalmers on The Simpsons.
Yes.
And, some of the basic like doctor voice on Family Guy, that kind of, you gotta get in the chest for that, but yeah.
And then your other main character, well, Jameson's not a main character, but he almost is because he's around all the time.
Right.
And in most episodes, and what we're doing right now in the 6-part Universe Journey, which they haven't heard yet, obviously he has a large arc in that. He's not just on the sidelines sending you off on the mission anymore.
Yeah, I was surprised by that.
Really? Why?
Well, I mean, because I didn't know what to. Because I intentionally didn't want spoilers for one thing.
Sure.
I did not see that coming. So
you didn't see an expanded role for him as well. I have all kinds of ideas for Jameson.
Yeah.
He is very important to the sketch. Just because he's on Earth, it's not natural to have him in every episode, but he's still important to the overall story going forward.
Yeah.
What is that your favorite character on the show, or do you prefer another character you've played?
Man, I kind of like Carl for the fight scenes, if nothing else. I have a couple of things that I'm thinking about doing there, but yeah.
So Commissioner Carl Darling,
yes,
that is your main character in the Top Notch Tangler, and he is in every episode of the Top Notch Tangler.
Right.
He is the police commissioner,
yes,
and boyfriend of Miss Kimberly Benson, the Top Notch Tangler. How do you approach Carl differently than Admiral Jamieson?
Well, that is much closer to my own voice, and I try to just in my head for that one actually it's more of like a Kevin Conroy, Bruce Wayne in my head.
Okay.
Kind of just trying to go for the smooth. It's supposed to be that's. It's funny in like the recent episode that we were recording. You were playing up he's supposed to be sexy to the women in that. And
he is. He's the dreamboat.
It's funny.
I mean, you got a billionaire businesswoman girlfriend. Of course that he's sexy.
Yeah, I suppose that would make sense.
Yeah. He's not some, slobby old fat guy. He's the police commissioner, goddammit. Of course, there's all kinds of directions we'll be taking that in as well. Is there something for Jamieson or Carl that you would like to see for them?
I haven't been letting myself imagine that, oddly enough.
Really?
Little things come up to me because I mean, I used to try to dabble in certain kinds of writing, actually, and it's always easy to like backseat it once you see it in front of you and go back and go, oh, I would have put that there, or he might have But just
don't correct my writing.
Yeah.
I'm saying for the future.
I know. It's hard to even that. I can't even really think. It's okay. It would be it'd be interesting if Carl actually tried to become a vigilante at some point.
Well, everybody on that show is going to want to try to get into the superhero game at some point somehow, right?
I have noticed he's been trying to become more involved. Like he's feeling, I guess, left out or trying to assert himself or prove something.
And another character you played that we actually just released right before this, the full commercial run, is Cowboy Joe.
Yes.
In
the past future thing.
In the past future.
Yes.
And obviously, if you've heard the last episode of the podcast, spoiler alert, Cowboy Joe died at the end. And you were quite upset by that, were you not?
A little bit. I mean, it's I don't know if it should have been. I mean, the way the story was going, it was.
It's only so far.
Yeah. Exactly. I was surprised that it headed in that direction to begin with, and I think that's even better for everyone who was at least seeing it from week to week at the time to have that story arc. So something dramatic like that.
Sure.
You wouldn't expect you to go that far. They look back at you.
It happened very organically. It was not planned ahead. It wasn't until like episode 4 that I realized I was going to kill him.
I remember you were saying you weren't even expected to do even more episodes.
No, it was just going to be one episode, a one-off. But that was a fun character.
Yeah.
And hopefully you enjoyed playing him.
I did.
And finding out the different layers of your character piece by piece.
It was hard to keep it consistent, unfortunately, at least for me. But then I was still learning, too, certainly.
Sure.
At the time.
And then you've got some other characters coming up, of course. They have not heard it yet, but you're going to play a character named Barry on Porn Star Detectives.
Right, yes.
Which is a multi-episode arc. It's not just a one-off.
Yep.
So we'll now that one you got to kind of create your own character. How did you approach creating a brand new character that I didn't give you much direction on?
Well, I mean, you gave me enough. I mean, at least I was trying to stay within the parameters there. I mean, you said something to the effect of like kind of East Coast urban.
How did you get involved with the show in the first place?
That was one of the luckiest things, actually. I don't know. I just over the last couple of years, I've been becoming more interested in trying to get into voice acting of some sort.
What attracted you to this show over other things you looked at?
It was the timing was just amazing. It was just random. It was right there. I had like maybe a couple of days to do it. I think even. It just so happened that Marianne and I had gotten a gift.
Marianne, your wife?
Yeah, my wife. Like for Christmas, I think my mom gave it to us, just like a podcast kit. And I just hooked it up and tried to figure out how to get it to work. And I was also doing some just internet searches for things in Columbus, voice, and then that came up in several places. And so...
and you didn't realize what you're signing up for, and unfortunately got stuck in. No,
I couldn't have imagined it would be this much fun, and it was kind of an intimidating leap for me to make, and even sometimes it's taken me this long to even get the confidence up to think that I'm even able to do some of this now. Especially with some of the other cast members who clearly have more technical training in certain things like this. And
what's your background?
Almost nothing. I say that. I mean, let me think. So there was in like junior high, I think I was in a play once.
What play?
And I can't even remember what it was called. And it's funny, I was thinking about this. The kind of character I played is the exact kind of character I'm playing now. Oddly enough, I think it was a superintendent or a principal.
Oh. Authority figure.
Yes, an angry boss coming in for these kinds of one of those scenes. Mm-hmm. And didn't really do much since then. I had like a semester acting class in college at one point. That was over 20 years ago.
You're dating yourself now. Yeah, Keith is actually 30, so he went to college very young.
Yeah. And as I said, over the last couple of years, one of the things that actually got me sort of steered toward this, oddly enough, another random encounter a few years ago. I went to Las Vegas for the first time with my wife, Marianne, who was not my wife at the time. It was our first Vegas trip. And we were looking for some other things to do while we were there because we weren't really big gamblers or anything necessarily. and we stumbled upon like a really young anime convention of all things that happened to be in Vegas that weekend. So it was fairly affordable. We got a couple passes and went. And one of the speakers there, one of the guests, was Steve Bloom of all people, who's one of the most recognizable voice actors for me at the time, because I hadn't had a lot of. It's not like I'd been doing a lot of research up to that point. It's one of those things I realized I was interested in because of another coincidence, because of Marianne in a way, our relationship. It's like I realized I'd been studying for it without realizing that I'd been studying for it. Mm-hmm. For most of my life up to that point, listening and paying attention to animation, thinking about the way they're doing things and why they're making the choices they're making with their voices. Could I have done that? What would I have done differently? And so, yeah, he was, Spike in Cowboy Bebop, one of the first animes I'd ever really paid attention to. Got to get up and actually, because it was very sparsely attended. It was this weird little thing, and just a bunch of shy kids around. So I got to ask multiple questions because no one else was speaking up, and so it was just, I couldn't believe I was able to do that. And there were other, we went to other conventions in general, like around the Ohio area, and got to meet and talk to a lot of other voice actors. A couple seminars, and actually one of the things I'd done, I think earlier last year, was to participate in a workshop where they let us go through some mock auditions and actually try to do some dubbing along with an anime that they'd handpicked for the purpose, like on the screen, and show us what would it be like to have to try to match the lip flaps and things like that, and while you're reading the script. It was amazing, actually. So that was one of the things that made me think I should be trying to do something like this, to try to make another step. A month or two after that, I did a search, and then this popped up, and I had a day or two. So
nice.
Right under the wire.
I think you were one of the later people that auditioned. So
yes, I benefited from that policy that you were talking about in one of the earlier interviews. Of I really appreciated that.
Do not make decisions until the deadline.
Yeah, you have. It's funny just listening to Nick. He was agonizing about that, or Nathan. They were saying,
God, yeah.
Just give me the part. I want the part. Yeah.
But, Nick begged for Kake for months, let me tell you. And in the very first episode of the live show, besides playing Cowboy Joe and Admiral Jamieson, who were both in that first show, you also played a character named Jack in The Scary Dead.
Oh, yes, right.
You were the leading man.
Yes.
And that was probably the first role I decided to cast you on, because you had a very leading man voice.
Huh.
I thought.
Well, thank you.
And I liked that the leading man died first. I'm sorry.
Of course. That's what
Lost intended to do and then did not do.
Is that why you named him Jack?
But yeah, it was kind of I did name him Jack because I was thinking Lost, and it was kind of like Jack, and Jack Bauer, of course, was the lead of 24,
awesome.
And Jack is a very common leading man name.
Yeah.
And I figured if we set up this guy as the leader of the group as the hero, and his name was Jack, nobody would think he'd die halfway through the first episode.
Yeah.
And the original pilot of Lost, the script, they were going to kill Jack off, Jack Shepherd.
Yeah.
And the network stepped in and said, no, you can't kill your leading man. And they were like, but nobody will expect it. And the network's like, yeah, for a reason. And I said, fuck that, I'm doing it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think that's one of the advantages of having an ensemble voice cast, is you can make a lot of bold choices, and it's not like you're firing anybody for it. It's just
Sure. There'll always be another role.
Yeah, characters just...
When we kill off Admiral Jamieson next week, I mean... Just kidding.
Yeah.
Just kidding, obviously. I told you, I have tons of plans for him.
Right.
I had toyed with killing Admiral Jamieson off this summer, and I had brought that up to you ahead of time. And you were like, "Oh, really?" You were very disappointed.
No, it's as I said, it's. I can't be too attached to these things, but at the same time, you can't help it. When you're trying to figure out how to do these roles anyway, you kind of have to develop some sort of affinity with them, and you just sort of feel like you're killing me or something. But I don't know. It takes a second, but I'll be fine. Obviously, whatever happens, it's just...
We'll never kill all your characters. But no, there is a member of our troupe who's one of our main players, and they're playing a main character in a sketch, and we're getting ready to kill them off in a couple of months after they've played this character for over a year, and they're very upset with me about it.
As well they should be.
So I can see from the actor's perspective, I completely understand. From a writer's perspective, I'm like, sorry, that's when I write, I like to kill. And that opens you up to me to use you in other ways in the sketch.
True.
So if I ever want to use you, for instance, there is, I know you're not in Daniel Kravitz's Chosen One, but there is a part that I've had in mind for you for several months on that show, and it just hasn't worked in the current stories. It'll probably be early 2017, but I think I already told you what part it was because I was like, yeah, that part is, yes, you're going to play that part, but it'll take us a while to get to it in the story. And if you were playing somebody else that was a major character in that, then obviously we couldn't use that. Right. So there's give and take.
Yeah. That's that kind of... Okay, you made me think of two things, actually, right now. First of all, the anti-spoiler thing, which I'm...
You, more than anyone in the cast, doesn't want to know what's coming up.
More than most people in the world, unfortunately. Yeah. It's just one of the quirks, I guess, or whatever. It's just I have my reasons, but I'm trying. And I mean, there's only so practical you can be about something like that. If you're actually working on something, you have to know what's going to happen at some point.
Yes and no. I mean, I think it's fair to ask me to not tell you until you get the script.
Right.
Obviously, you're going to get the script at some point, and there's nothing. I can't save it as a surprise to the performance.
I can just sight read and go, "Oh my God!" Is it on the
stage?
Should
hold a couple pages sometime and give them to you the day of. But no, there's nothing I can do about that. But yeah, I try to respect that, even though from my perspective, I'm like, you're in the show. Why don't you want to know? Right. As opposed to somebody that's just watching the show. Obviously.
Because I'm a fan. I really am. That's actually that's one of the things that attracted me to. You did ask that question before. That is one of the other elements I didn't touch on, which is, as I'm reading the script, I think this is pretty smart. This is funny. Because I maybe really want to try to do that, and because to get over the fear of trying to do anything, honestly, I have to be really tempted to want to do something to offset that. And it's great even for when we come into the rehearsals, because on the page it sounds kind of funny. You're reading through this, oh, that's funny. But just hearing the people bring it to life and do the things with the timing and the voices, it's just amazing how that just adds, kicks it up another notch, and it's just... we laugh so much here. For
months leading up to the first show, obviously Nick was helping me work on some of the scripts. I'd write them and then I'd take them to him to get his input. And I said, it's going to rise or fall based on this ensemble. I can write something that's shit, or I could write something that's brilliant, but if the cast isn't brilliant, either one of those scripts are going to fail. Yeah. So we've been very lucky to put together an ensemble that just works really well. So who in the ensemble do you think sucks that we should get rid of?
Oh,
just kidding.
Okay.
I was kidding.
Well, I was hoping you were going to give me the truth serum and ask me that question, but no.
I would never ask anybody seriously.
Thank you. That. I mean, it's just...
beside yourself, of course. I'm kidding there, too. You have done... I wouldn't keep writing for you, like giving Jamieson more material and keeping Cowboy Joe going as long as I did if I wasn't inspired by your performance to give you that material to keep it going.
Well, good,
if that makes any sense.
Yeah. I do appreciate that, too. So the other of a couple of things that made me think of the discussion. The number 2017 already, that just sounds agonizing. It's like when, like a year or two ago when they mentioned Deadpool, or beginning 2016, that just sounded like that's forever away.
Yeah.
That's never going to get here.
Can you believe that we're sitting here in April of 2016 and already know that we're going to still be making shows in 2017?
No.
And we haven't even hit our first anniversary yet.
That's so weird to even... a year ago at this time, I wouldn't have even imagined that I would have an opportunity like this, let alone have something where I can see ahead like that.
Well, and you're the first one that has recorded to meet the cast since we moved to the actual theater. As much as I love Packard Comics, they were awesome. It's so cool they let us start there. Now that we're in a real theater and they really like our show and have booked us through all of 2016 and are looking at us for their 2017 schedule, we suddenly have a future that's, laid out for us.
Wow.
I'd say a number of the cast were nervous about the move, and a couple of them tried to talk me out of it and were not in favor of going downtown. Were you one of those that thought it was a bad idea? And
nope.
you can freely say, because plenty of them did.
Not at all.
Not at all? Okay.
I was thinking, okay, that's what we needed to do to grow the audience.
Well, we've got on way off a tangent and got off of you, so let's bring it back to Keith Jackson, the reason we're here. So, something I've asked the other people that I've talked to is there either a sketch or a character that you would love to play that you haven't had the opportunity to do yet?
That exists or does not exist, you're saying?
Both. Like, is there a character you would love to play and see added, or is there a character that already exists that you're like, they're good, but man, they're so good I want to play that part, even though it's no disrespect to the actor playing it. I'm not saying you think you can do it better, but just that character's so much fun, I wish that were me.
So there are a few things that are in my head. To finish the other thought about 2017 is...
Oh, yeah, sorry.
Well, no, it wasn't an interruption. It's just I think that I go in circles in my head. I talk in circles, unfortunately. But you mentioned the character that you have in mind for Daniel Kravitz, which I know and I can't say. You don't want to say either. But I'm excited about that one because that is a kind of character that I would have wanted to play. It's much more cartoony than I had been approaching things. Well, for several reasons. One, because, as I said, the way that I've been learning in some of the other actor panels and so on is that one thing that they were saying is that you shouldn't necessarily focus on trying to do the zanier things. You can open up more options if you are able to do the straight things, I suppose. Just focus on the actual emotion of what you're doing rather than... Because you can there are a handful of people that are already in business who specialize in those things, and the kind of people that the director's already going to just go right to them and go, do this. Oh, we already have a funny voice guy over here who does this. So, and just like there's certain people in the cast that are brilliant at it. I mean, that's one of the intimidating things too. You hear them just like pull something out, and they're just like, wow, like Nick, just anything, just
Nick,
all these, Shane,
Dallas,
Sam. Just oh my god.
But
how can you?
The nice part about this show is it gives you room to do both at the same time.
Yeah, true.
Like, you can take your Jamieson or your Carl and develop them as a character, and then come in for a brief appearance or a couple episodes as a zany voice.
Yeah, definitely. But along those lines, as I said, it's hard for me to see one of those parts and go, why I can't do that. It's, Kake was probably one of the closest things. That's one of the ones I tried out for the beginning.
Everybody tried out for Kake.
Right.
I'm sorry.
You want to. Yeah, it's just like you can't help it.
And I know that might have been perceived as nepotism, giving it to my second oldest friend, but I feel like he just does so well with it.
Yeah. He can take it to those the other over the top levels that it needs to be taken to at times.
But also give him that heart underneath, which is tricky, I think.
Yeah. Speaking of which, you also said, what would I like to see Jamieson do? And that also kind of ties in. And I think it's already kind of happening in a way. I can't really get into detail about that, obviously, but just the idea of him becoming a little more hands-on, being drawn into the craziness a little bit more, maybe becoming more sympathetic to the antics that seem to be happening. Because he's always coming in and going, what the hell just happened here? Why would this possibly happen to anyone?
Yeah,
which is good because that's what you want to have somebody.
We got to have an outsider.
Yeah, to connect to the audience in that way, to be able to say what they want to say the straight man thing. Of course, this is ridiculous. How could this possibly happen to any normal person? Sort of thing.
And yet now, not that he's gotten involved in the main antics, but he has come in with his own basic antic, really, that has now brought him into the craziness in a different, unique way. That's him. Yeah. He's not just getting involved in theirs. He's leading an antic, really.
Indeed.
As we develop him on a personal level.
So what was the main question was what else would I want to...
Yeah, what else would you want to do in the show? Not promising anything. I just love to get pitches and ideas. Some people have story ideas. Some people have characters. And you guys have put in so much work in this show. I figure you're the people to ask. Like, what do you like? What do you see? What do you want?
Damn it! It's too open ended. It's too big right now, and I can't. My mind locks right. Well, it's like in the morning. Yeah. When I'm just waking up, something will come right to me, and then it's gone. And it just occurred to me. One of the things that I had done with again the practice that I was putting in without even realizing I was doing it at the time was reading aloud to my wife Marianne. I'm not sure if she was my wife at the time when I first started doing that, but. Since she was a child, she always loved Sherlock Holmes, and so I got like on the Nook like the complete collection of it, and I've been reading through some of it, and then sometimes I would read some of it aloud to her in the car or something like that. It would be kind of funny to bring in like a Sherlock character briefly on Porn Star Detectives or something. That's another digression, isn't it?
Sure. That's okay. I mean, because you don't have a lot of that theater background to discuss as some of the other cast members did, so talking about your influences, whether it be Sherlock Holmes or anime or whatever, kind of gives us insight into how you approach the story. Are you a big anime fan?
I would say that I've become a bigger anime fan in the last few years, definitely. Racked up a lot of those. Actually, so, I mean, for the purpose of what I would want to do with that, even, as I listen to it, I'm critiquing a lot of the pioneering stuff in my head, because, a lot of it is kind of stilted because of the process they had to go through. Some of it, is, as I've learned, is because of the input of, like, the Japanese studios. They say, no, it should sound more like this, or it should, their sensibilities of what sounds funny to them is going to be different from American sensibilities.
Sure.
And also just the pool of talent got a lot larger as the years have gone by, and so some of the newer stuff that's being recorded, like with modern day, you can hear just a dramatic increase in acting quality and just the natural feel of things. So as far as my influences, I'd say there's probably a lot of other American animation that, like my absolute favorites of anything would be Archer, Venture Brothers,
Both.
Rick and Morty. Those are like the things that.
Three of my favorite programs.
Yeah, right there, like the achievements in voice acting there.
Have you noticed the Archer influences in Universe Journey?
I'd have to think about it. That wasn't not one of these.
Honestly, the most obvious thing to me is the way when Captain Kake's off doing his thing, we check back in on the crew. Because I love how Archer has that office calm mixed with the spy.
Yes.
I didn't intend to do that, but we have such a good supporting cast, we can't just ignore them for half the episode.
Yeah, I mean, there's something to be said for the good like B-story rhythm of having that.
I love when we jump back to the bridge for a couple of pages and just get them doing whatever they're doing.
Yeah, and the more recent ones, those are the show stealing moments. Actually, are just the little things that don't really have anything to do with what's going on out there. I know.
Kind of a little bit like The Office.
Right.
A little bit. Yeah. So, Dallas asked you a question.
Oh God, that's right. Yeah.
This is what we do, and I stole this from Paul F. Tompkins' podcast Spontanea Nation, where the previous guest gets to ask you a question, and you get to ask a question for the next guest. So Dallas's question was, and this is something we've kind of sort of touched on, but Dallas just wants to know, where did you get that voice?
Which voice? My
That voice. Because you have such a deep, distinctive voice. That's so cool. Obviously.
That's kind of it's weird. Getting back to the surprise background of things. When I think back to my childhood, it reads like this is going to be made for like one of those made-for-TV movies about here's how you became a voice actor. It's like because when I was
all the TV movies for the different voice actors. I mean, they're just coming out every month.
Yeah.
Billy West this month, next month Milk, Black, then Keith Jackson the month after.
Yeah. I was actually mocked for my voice, the way it sounded when I was a little kid.
Really?
Yeah.
Was it this deep when you were?
It wasn't quite, but I mean, it was. I didn't know what it sounded like. It sounded a certain way in my head, but I learned that I needed to find a way to control it in a certain way, so it wasn't sort of like that, Because if you're a kid and you're just think that's what it would sound like to them, they do that, and I'm like, Christ, what am I?
So are you saying the voice you use now isn't your natural voice? You have to try.
No, not that. It's just that there's, although that does help, and when I'm thinking about how to do other voices, the type of control that I'm using. It does make me, I don't know. It's what, I'm not sure if I'm even saying this.
There's no wrong answer to that.
No,
it was a silly question.
I know, but still, it ended up developing that way, I think, because of that. You started thinking more about, diction and elocution and things like that. But
okay.
So
you get to ask a question. The next guest will be Samantha Stark. What would you like to ask Sam?
Does it have to be voice acting related? I don't.
No, it can be anything under the sun.
There are too many things.
Remember, like, Nick asked Nathan, what's it like to be a Eugene?
Oh, God. That was the greatest thing. She's one of the ones I was really impressed with increasingly, as the months would go by, because as we're coming out of our shells, and we have more time to riff on things, or when we're like substituting for other voices, for example, she'll do just spot on imitations of people and the characters, and I freak out, like, wow, how did...
She's also one of the people that improv more than most in our group.
Yeah.
And does it very well.
Yeah. Oh, yes. I've actually had this problem for a while.
Oh, okay.
Can she help me untangle that?
And you're pointing to your wallet chain.
Yes. I don't know
Which
how
is
this
pretty
happened.
knotted.
But yeah.
Wow. Yeah, I don't know how that happens either. I will ask Sam.
Yes.
I mean, it's going to be like 2 months before I talk to her. So I will ask her if she can help you untangle your wallet chain. That is perfectly valid. Anything else that I haven't asked you that you wish I had, or that you would like to the viewers or listeners to know? If you have any ideas, feel free to toss them out. I hope you feel like this is run as a team, not as like I'm up here and you're under here.
No. Well, I mean,
Even though at first
I
remember
kind
you were
of do.
Let's talk about that real quick. You were early in the show. What was this, like month 3 or something? So not super early. Like, we gotten together 6-7 times, but you were still like, I'm still nervous. Like, I don't know what to call you, James or Jim or Jimmy or Sir. You weren't sure.
Yeah. There is that. I mean, there is that perception of I just. As I said, this is something I just found randomly on the internet. I had no idea, like how serious you're going to be about everything in general.
Gotcha.
Like how strict things are going to be.
I'm very serious, incredibly unstrict.
Yeah.
It has been a great pleasure getting to know you, and I hope you're on the show for many years to come. I expect this show at this point, I'm starting to think it will run for many years, so I hope you're around for it.
It's been a highlight of everything.
Awesome. Thank you.
So, yeah.
Wasn't fishing for compliment, I just wanted to say. You are, I've really enjoyed getting to know you, and I'm very glad you're a part of the show. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I make the statement that reciprocates that. However that be phrased correctly, I don't know.
Okay.
Yes.
Awesome. Well, you guys have
I reciprocate that. There it is.
Well, listeners, have a wonderful night. Enjoy Keith's performance. If you haven't heard it yet, go back to listen to last week's episode with his Cowboy Joe run, the complete series of those commercials. And next time we do a Meet the Cast, we'll be back with Samantha Stark of Porn Star Detectives and the Top Notch Dangler.
I love that we're gesturing, and I just keep looking at the microphone as if it's a camera.
Oh, like, I always
gesture.
We should put these on YouTube or something, but we're not recording video, so...
Yeah.
Then we can't cut out all the stuff so naturally.
True.
But, okay, have a good night, people. Thank you very much for listening to It's All Been Done Radio Hour. This week's episode was episode number 22, Meet the Cast, Keith Jackson. Obviously, it starred Keith Jackson as himself. Go to itsallbeendoneradiohour.com for more information on our show. You can also listen to us streaming every Tuesday at 9 p.m. on Radio 614. Like us on Facebook, follow us on Instagram and Twitter, and please rate and review us on iTunes.
Are you Daniel Crockett? This is Abby, the cashier. She'd love to help you. I'm not here to buy anything. I'm looking for Daniel Crockett.
You think Grisset the Green is a fool? Sending Grisset the Green on a wild goose chase? You are not Retard the Red. You are Daniel Kravitz.
Can I help you? Whoa, you accusing me of being a thief? I'm an honest businessman. I actually wasn't going to open a sex toy shop at all. My dream is to run a candy store.